So I'm out walking around and I'm just, it's Saturday morning. It's beautiful. It's summer. And hey, Mark, come on. Hey, we got a show to do. And I come running in here and look who's on my screen, Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Sylvester, good morning.
How are you? He's Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the Elder Council. And it's summertime. And the living is easy.
And finally it's summer.
You had a brutal winter, so finally it's summer. It's the t-shirt you're wearing all day.
That's yes, and we've had so much rain, and it's actually lovely, beautiful outside right now. It's sunny, and
so we're having something here as a result of all that rain called a super bloom. Are you having that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is so green up here, and so I've never seen it like this. And I've been up here a long time.
It is wild mustard that is grown, that is just in it. It's that just whole hillsides are yellow with wild mustard in bloom. And we took a drive last night up over the San Marcos Pass back into the valley, and our Lake Cachuma, which was so low you could walk out to the island, is now full, and the dam is overflown. We had enough rain, but it was so beautiful coming up over the pass, and you could see Lake Cachuma out there. But then the hills, just the wildflowers on the hills, it's one of my favorite times of year.
It is so beautiful there. So beautiful.
So, my friend,
I'm thrilled that the reservoirs there are full.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm thrilled.
Well, one of the things about water, I'm going to be doing a show in November. I've located a water expert who has worked at the city level, the county level, the state level, and worked with water boards and kind of the infrastructure of water, which I don't understand at all. And I had a conversation with him, and he really took me to school on all the issues related to water, which I had no visibility on at all. I had no reason to. I saw the movie Chinatown, but that doesn't mean I know about water politics. So he's of a mind that the real danger for us is imminent right now from the snowmelt. We have an area, it used to be a lake, it's a dry lake in Central California that is no longer dry. And because it's been dry for so long, people have built in that lake, and that's all flooded now. It's complete. That's gone.
Wow.
And that's just one example. He says people aren't paying. He says talking about water isn't sexy. It doesn't make the news. Yeah, except for the news him and his kind read.
Right. Well, what's interesting is just like 2 weeks ago, I flew to Northern California and to do an initiation with Connor, and the mountains of Colorado still have such a deep snowpack on them.
Yeah.
It's like by now, usually that is mostly gone. It was not. In fact, there was some new snow. And so it's been that kind of year. And I mean, truth is I'd rather have it be a lot of snowpack and a lot of water versus drought. I mean, that, and it's a whole different gig, so to speak. And it's lovely because water is so life-giving.
Yeah, it is. Well, speaking of life-giving, as you take a sip, I had an idea for a conversation. I've got a friend who He's an educator. Probably he's a world renowned expert on early childhood education. Gare Grouse.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And yeah, Gare. So,
Hmm.
and I enjoy regular long conversations with him as well, though we don't record them to do a show, but we talk about things. And he brought up something a couple of weeks ago that I've been wanting to talk to you about. And
Okay.
he uses this as something as a part of, he does keynotes all over the world. He does probably 3 or 4 talks a week.
Really? Wow.
He's literally the guy you want to come speak about education and the future of education and our children and what are we doing and what are we messing up. And he's pretty great. Anyway,
He's that guy.
he's that guy. Yeah. And you're a guy, so that's what I'm surrounded by, people like that. I'm very much by design in different aspects of my life that I can have those kinds of conversations. And this is one I think that bleeds over in a really interesting way. So he has this concept that it's a thought experiment. So we're going to do this. And we are going to create the ideal dinner party. And this dinner party is going to be held at our favorite restaurant in the world. So it could be anywhere. And we're going to invite 12 people who we would this chance to have dinner with this one person is amazing. But we're going to have 12 of these people, and we are going to curate this dinner so that the people are going to they're going to be, oh my gosh, you're here. And we want to keep it in mostly recent history. They could still be alive. They could be dead. Doesn't matter. But we don't want to go back, 3,000 years.
Got it.
Right. So with that in mind, and he shows a picture, right? He starts off with a picture of a restaurant that's his favorite restaurant in northern Italy for him and his wife. When they go there, that's the first place they go. And there's this lovely picture of 2 waiters standing in front of this place talking. So you can imagine, like, what's that conversation like? What are they saying? Because I'm just looking at that going, because I love attaching stories to things. And then he starts painting on the pictures of the people. Martin Luther King is on there. Mother Teresa is on there. Muhammad Ali is on there. A famous soccer player is on there. There's people I don't know. Some are legislators in Europe that he would just, oh my gosh, if I could have a conversation with them. So he's challenged me and another friend because he'd like to see this built into something where you could have an app maybe, and you could build this amazing dinner party and then use it as a conversation starter and start to understand. So as I say that, before we play this game, what's going through your mind?
Well, one, I'm a little blown away because I love this idea. And 2, what's running through my mind is, like, what people might I want to invite? And that is a little more clear, although it's not super clear. And I'm sort of going, okay, what restaurant would I want to go to? And actually it's down sort of between 2. But, so I'm just fantasizing that.
Well, that's so he's done this many, many times. So he has a pattern that goes with it that I don't know. So I'm going to conjure my own, and I'm going to send him this episode because I think he'll get a kick of how I've interpreted what he does, because he's very deliberate about the stories he tells and the themes that he weaves and the lessons that you get out of that. But I thought the two of us could have fun with it. So what are the two restaurants? What about them makes them the place where you would want to have this dinner?
Well, one of the restaurants is called Willow Creek, which I've shared with you. In fact, you were kind enough to gift me.
We bought you a lovely dinner, I think.
Yeah, dinner there. And what I like about it is it's actually small. It sits on a lake. It's all windows. And it's in an older building, so it's very quaint and it's like it's one of the restaurants that you walk into, that I walk into, and I go, oh, this is like home. And it probably only sits maybe 30, 35 people.
So we're going to take the restaurant for the evening then.
Yeah, we'll just take the restaurant,
and we'll have them clear out all the tables and then set a table. Okay.
And then the other one is one, it's called the Fort, which is Kimberly and I went there for her birthday, and it was I had the best steak that I've ever had. And I'd only been there maybe one other time in my life, and the service was impeccable. It was like, but and everything in the meal was incredibly, it was like a melt in your mouth kind of experience. So,
and which one of them do you think it would be more conducive to create? Because as we're curating this place, we're thinking about how you feel when you're there and how you hope others will feel.
I think I think Willow Creek would be the one I would pick of the two. The Fort is sort of more like if I were going to sit down with 4 people. Like, for instance, if you and Kimberly came out,
we're going to the Fort.
Yeah. If we're having a larger group of 10 or 12, I think the atmosphere of Willow Creek would be a bit of a better atmosphere.
And so who is so we'll play this one at a time. We'll go back and forth.
Okay.
I don't know the name of this restaurant, but it is in Tokyo, and it's on the 30th floor of a probably 50-floor skyscraper in the temple, just in the kind of where the palace is, right near there. And I had a meal there 25 years ago, and this skyscraper raises up, and when you go inside, the entire center is empty. It's an atrium all the way to the top. This is a very unsaid brag that we have so much money, we don't need to build anything in the middle. We'll just leave it open because it's cool. And their ability to build it in this exact spot had several contingencies, but one of them was that a restaurant that had been there for 400 years had to be located somewhere in this building. So up on this high floor, you go through the doors and you are transported to, felt like a couple of 100 years back in Japan. And we were led, it was just 2 of us. My client, who I'd flown there about a week before Christmas for a big meeting with Sony the next morning, and his gesture of gratitude was to take me to this, what's called an omakase dinner. And we went in and sat, we were brought into this huge room with this one long, low table that would easily seat the 12 people, 12 of us, and served a 20-course meal over a period of 3 hours.
That's
And
amazing.
he had been a Zen Buddhist priest. So he explained what each thing was, why it was on the plate it was, why it was served in the order it was, why the colors, all of it, all of it, all of it, all of it. So that's where I want to have my dinner, is there.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Okay, so who's your first guest?
Well, the first person that came to mind was Michelle Obama.
Oh.
The reason is because every time I have listened to her, she's carries such depth and creativity, and I think passion would be the word I would use. And I would just love to hear about her experience of life and how she sees the world. And
Okay, keep going. I'm going to go through a few.
keep going with another person.
Yeah.
I think the second person I would. This is going to be quite the. I actually, how historically far back can I go?
The only person you can't invite is Jesus.
Well, that would actually be the second person.
And he said Gare has said in his doing this as many times as he's done it, that's people want him there. So he wants it to keep it in the relatively near term.
Okay. I think another person I would think about would be Winston Churchill.
Ooh, controversial.
And mostly it's like the complexity of what he experienced and had to deal with. And World War II and that war changed everything in the world as we know it. And he was a central figure in that. So, and not from a standpoint of going, yeah, he did great or he wasn't good or not that, but it's like, what was it that he saw and knew and experienced?
One of the things that's crossing my mind right now that would be fun with this game is that you get to imagine a time in that person's life that you get to drop into to invite them to the dinner. So tell us about, when are you going to drop in on Winston Churchill and invite him to dinner?
Oh, but it would be right at the beginning of, in that whole period of time that was leading up to in the beginning of World War II, where he ended up needing to be involved.
So a third, and then we'll switch.
Actually, one of the people in my life that has always been unbelievably intriguing to me is Muhammad Ali. I'd love to sit down and talk with him.
And when do you invite him? What's just happened or what's about to happen?
I think it would be really when he converted to Islam and then also, like, he was a world champ and then he got drafted, and that period of time where he had to make that choice because he could have made, I mean, he was such a public figure, he could have allowed himself to be drafted and then become an entertainer, or, I mean, in, the chances of him actually having to be in combat would be very small, um, but the depth of value and the depth of belief that he had, that actually that he went with, that literally again changed his life. It was a life-changing piece.
So tell me, how does Winston relate to being introduced to someone he's never heard of, Muhammad Ali? And what's that like? Because that's the other fun dynamic, is the part for us to interact, but then the part for them to interact.
Well, both of those men had to, whether you like them or not, whether you think they did the right thing or not, both of those men had to make unbelievably difficult life situations and life decisions in certain situations that altered um, clearly altered the direction of their lives, but also altered the direction of what was happening in the world.
Hmm.
And Churchill's, it was more clear on some levels, but I think that what Ali brought was, and I think Ali probably paid a higher personal price, but it's like having those two men sit and talk to each other about the depths of what they had to do and the depth of what was behind the decisions of what they did.
I think this dinner will probably have to occur over a very long weekend.
Yes, this would not, because actually what's interesting is probably without both of them, Michelle Obama and
Mm.
she and Obama would never ended up in the White House.
So something that just crossed my mind was when Barack would, turn off the light in the Oval Office. Probably someone did that for him, but metaphorically, and goes upstairs after some very momentous decision and talks to his closest friend about what just, hey honey, how was your day? Right? Because that doesn't go away because you're whatever position you are, you're still the husband, right?
Yes.
And so I could imagine that conversation as well. So it's interesting because you could have a parallel dinner with the spouse of all the people we invite.
Wouldn't that be incredible?
Right.
Well, I mean, you and I are very, very good friends. We clearly have shared many life experiences, both as we've known each other and even before we've known each other. We've shared many life experiences, literally brothers from another mother. And what I'm aware of is in your life and in my life, what we do is highly, highly influenced by the women that we're with.
Yeah.
And we both want that. And it's also a incredibly positive influence. This is where both of us have what I would call very powerful relationships, and using my definition of power, the ability to influence and be influenced in contact in relationship. And as opposed to being controlled, neither of us are controlled by the women we're with, nor do we control them. With watching Barack and Michelle, it's like that's what happens with them too. I'm very curious about that dynamic and how did that play out during the presidency. I mean, how's it played out? I mean, in all of their lives.
When you look at your life's work is in a big part of it is couples counseling and family counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Big part of it. So earlier in that day of that dinner, you got to sit with each of these couples. There's probably a Mrs. Churchill, right, and a Mrs. Ali, right,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you get and the slice of life that you enjoy, the 1-on-2 dynamic, is without all the shields are down, right? They clearly have known you for a long time. You're their guy, and nothing's off limits. What's that conversation like, or those conversations?
Well, you're asking unbelievably. These are really great questions. I'm sort of blown away here. Like when I make a decision to do something, a lot goes into that decision. A very significant part of that has been hours of conversations with Kimberly. I mean, one of the things that I love about our relationship the most is, I mean, we just did a 2-day road trip with each other, driving like 10 hours a day. And it was like, there was never a time where we weren't talking about something really cool. I mean, sometimes it was, how do we get through this incredibly heavy duty thunderstorm? But other times it was like, well, what about this? What about that? So, like my curiosity goes to what was the depth of, well, let me say one other thing. When I come out of those conversations, and this is the same for Kimberly when she makes decisions, it's like it's still my decision at the end of the day. But it's my decision made within the field or within the context of having brought in a lot of other perspectives, and particularly hers, because my decisions will affect both of us, as well as her decisions will affect both of us. So it's literally I mean, that's what I would be curious about, was what were the discussions before this got proposed, or what was the discussion before, the speech that was given on this day, or before this decision to
I have a question,
whatever.
because I was trying to imagine, I could see Barack and Michelle having that very co-creation type of relationship. But I wonder if the times, because the times are important, if Winston and his wife had that deep, or was, because I think relationally men and women were different. I think, I don't know. I mean, I have zero knowledge of, were things different, or was it, no, that he just, thanks for the coffee, honey, I've got to get to work. What are you doing? Oh, important stuff. Or was it a truly collaborative? I'm thinking of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. I have this sense that they were two people that would talk about those kinds of things, whether anybody knew that or not. So I'm going to go with that they did have that. So
we have guess three. Is that they had it at least to the, like all of those decisions that both Churchill and Ali made they were life-changing decisions. If nothing else, they had to have someplace to go to release stress.
Yeah.
Of those. I mean, even interestingly enough, even if it was to go have sex to release stress,
Yeah.
you know, how was that? How was that played out in their relationship?
So
That was
I'm going to send this to Gare, and then Gare is going to have a little chuckle right then because we've clearly taken this and kind of done
yeah, blowing it
this
up.
this with it. So we have three. We have Michelle Obama, we have Winston Churchill, and we have Muhammad Ali. And so I'm going to take it a little different
Yeah.
because Gare challenged. We had a meeting. I heard all about this. It wasn't a meeting. We had a conversation, and the next time we met, he goes, "So who are you inviting?" And I was like, "Oh man, I didn't do my homework." Okay, and he's a teacher, right? He's an educator. So I said, "Okay, I'm going to do. And not only am I going to do my homework, I'm going to sit in the front of the class and when it's time to report." And so I've thought a long time about it, and where I'm going to go is very, very, very different. And I figure that we can make our own rules in this reality.
That'd be true.
So the first person I want to invite is my father when he was 20. And I'm going to be 20 at this dinner. And I have a picture of him on a Navy ship when he's 20, he looks like a movie star with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And he's just in character. And that picture makes me want to talk to him at that age, not older, talking about that picture. I want to talk to that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hear, I have so much that I want to talk to him about, but I want to kind of get it like we're both 20 years old
Mm-hmm.
and I've met him. And I'm trying to decide if I know he's my dad. I know he's my dad and he knows I'm his son. But I didn't have a conversation with him when I was 20. I maybe had one. Right. Not close to him. So I think that would be spectacular. The second person is his dad at 20, because his dad, my grandfather, I never met my maternal grandfather. He passed away well before I was born. I only got to see my dad twice a year, once in the summertime for the company picnic. He would fly down and pick us boys up, and we would go to his company picnic. And then we saw him on Christmas Day growing up. So he'd come get us and we would go see his family, whom he didn't see either. Right. And there's two sisters and two brothers and all the kids. But my favorite part of that was sitting with my grandfather. And I know your grandfather had a tremendous impact on your life.
Huge impact.
We've talked about instituted some huge changes for you, right? So I would love to talk to him when he was 20. And I would just love to know just what was that like at that age? Because he lived till he was in his 90s. My dad lived until his 90s. I'm going to go until I'm in my 90s. Yet here we are at the beginning of these journeys at 20 years old. And my third person, I would populate the whole table, but I'll go to the third person, is the first Sylvester to come to America in 1634, William Sylvester. And it was right in the period when there was a great migration from England, and the Mayflower was the first ship. He was on the second or third ship. And I'm a 13th generation direct line to him. So there were seven brothers, and he was the second son. And my line goes, I can trace it all the way back to him.
To win
So
16 what?
1634.
Wow.
So I would love to have him at the dinner at 20. Now, I don't know. I have not looked, and I can look to see how old he was when he made that trip. But let's, for sake of our thought experiment, say that he has just come to America and he's 20. So that the four of us, and my dinner would have every single male father in
Mm-hmm.
that direct line at the dinner at 20 years old. Because one of the things that was interesting is one that's 400 years of history,
Mm-hmm.
very, very different. But I want William to see me
Mm.
400 years later.
So what do you think he would say? What would
Looking
his
good. I also have added to our thought experiment that there's a picture, a portrait after the dinner. And I would love to see 13 Sylvesters at 20 years old. I just
that
would
would be?
I can imagine it, which is why it's kind of emotional
Mm-hmm.
to think about what that would be like, and to talk with all of the different slices of Sylvester through the hundreds of years. And then a year later we would do it at 30, right?
Mm.
And then uh as I was explaining this last night at dinner, I thought, so it's either at 20, because I think 20 is this magical age. It was for me. I had my son, my first child was born. I was married. I was young and all of that. And so I had made a bunch of life choices right there around 19, 20 years old that changed everything for me. The other age, though, that I would pick, were I able to, in this magical universe, I can do anything. I would have everybody at about 5 or maybe 10 years before they passed away.
Mm.
Because I don't know how old people were. They may have died young, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Mm-hmm.
possible. So maybe 5 years. So they're still vibrant, but they might be old. Like my grandpa, I think was 96. So him at 90. So I'd love to have the 20, and then I'd love to have okay, let's sit around a powwow.
So this is really interesting. I mean, because part of what you're talking about, which actually sounds absolutely fascinating, is you looking at history through your family tree, so to speak. And I'm looking at history in sort of a family, a societal bit of a societal family tree. Not quite the same, but
Which was the original brief, by the way. So you did it right.
yes. So, but what's interesting about it is, and what I would be incredibly curious about is how similar would those conversations be
Hmm.
with the group of people that you're choosing and the group of people that I would choose. And my guess is that there would be a fair amount of similarity in there.
Hmm. Give me an example.
Your however many great grandfathers that came in 1634 is that the world was changing then.
Hmm. Yeah, it was on the
The
cusp of a major change, right? The New World.
Yeah, and it's like, and he was a part of that, and there were struggles with it, and there were good parts
Imagine
about it.
stepping on the boat and saying goodbye to his mom and his family.
Yeah. And not really knowing where he's going to end up. And whatever ship he was on, it was a sail ship. It wasn't powered by anything other than wind. So we're talking numbers of months to get across to here. It wasn't I don't know how long it took, maybe 6 or 8 weeks.
Probably.
But it's like here are a series of people that are stepping into something completely different. And when he got here, what was his view of slavery? What was his view of making a living? Where did he land? What was happening? How was he surviving?
And there was no doubt a Sylvester during the Civil War and a Sylvester during the Revolutionary War and Sylvester during World War I, right? That would be my great, great, great grandfather.
Yeah. And Sylvester during World War II. And
yeah.
The other interesting part is I have a relatively similar picture. My dad was in the Navy.
Yeah.
So, with a little square hat and but it's like, what an incredible process to look at how people have experienced the dramatic changes in our society, our culture, our world, and for a man in the early 1600s to be willing to get on a boat that he would maybe make it. It wasn't for sure. It's not like, and it was a life experience. It's not, we complain about, oh, it's a 9-hour flight between here and London. It's like, there's 9 hours to get out of the bay there, get onto the ocean. And so, but just what it is, it's both of us are, interestingly enough, are looking at history. It's just history from different perspectives.
So I want to think about our listener right now who's been listening to this whole thing and kind of challenge them to sit down and have this thought experiment.
Yeah.
Where is the place that you most want to be? My original thought, it took me a while to come up with that restaurant, which I have no idea of the name or if I could even figure out the name. But my original thought was I would want to be on the patio of a huge restaurant that doesn't exist, that would be on an island. That's a big, beautiful deck right there on the beach with, and it would be, we'd watch the sunset together and we would all be out on this deck. That's my idyllic location when someone says, future think to a time when you're super happy. And for me, that picture has always been me sitting with family all around, right? Because that's an idyllic thing for me because I don't have that. So that's the thing I would want. So I would encourage our listener to think about that. Where would it be? Who would you invite and why? And then think about that they're going to talk to one another, because you can't sit there and talk to everybody. That's a speech. That we're not doing a speech. We're doing we're doing a dinner party.
So here's a little bit of an interesting perspective, and then I do have to run here. If I say flight simulator, do you know what I mean by that?
100%.
And I wish I would have been the person to think about this phrase, but I'm not. But I can't remember who I got it from. Is that we because of our evolutionary process with our brains, we can have experience simulators. That's sort of what our brain is doing. And this kind of a thought experiment allows us to do that. And so in addition to what you're working with and what you put out, is for the listener to allow yourself to drop into this and have an experience simulation of this process.
Because there's
Like,
no reason we can't have that dinner in our mind.
exactly.
There you go.
And so
Love you, my friend.
love you and thank you so much. And you told me about you have some great fun things coming up. I just really
Well, you're going to be
enjoy.
thinking about this dinner all day long as you go about your work.
I am. I'm literally online with a person with two sisters who are twins. One is here and one is in Ireland. And after you and I get off here, and I actually may do something like this with them.
I love it.
All right. Love you, man.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.